over to you, Joe, for your case study.
Great. So thank you for joining me today. My name's Joe Terranella. I just completed the 8-week Prod MBA course. So today I'm going to review sort of my learnings and my goals from the course and sort of talk about where I started and where I've ended up. All right. So my goals for the Prod MBA were sort of threefold. To really force myself to practice the product theory that I've been, reading about on product Twitter for ages and I've gone to workshops about, but to actually get out and make myself actually do the work outside of on my own time, not in a work context. So I had sort of both the freedom, but also the complete lack of support to do the work. So I sort of threw myself into the deep end with this. So practice product theory, improve my professional confidence, and to ship an actual product. So on the professional confidence piece, I've been doing products for 7 years. I've noticed there's a sort of a gap in my sort of skill set where I will have an idea and I have struggled in the past to present that idea clearly and coherently and with confidence, just due to my own sort of insecurities. And this program has really helped with helping me to build my confidence and build trust in my insights and ideas. And that little voice in the back of my head says, this is the right thing to do. So that's been a really great sort of learning from this process so far. And lastly, to ship a product, as I said before, forcing myself to just sort of jump in at the deep end and go from start to finish, figure out how to do everything myself. That's really been quite the process. So shipping an actual product is really really an amazing learning process, and being in this course sort of held me accountable to actually doing that work. Different from like a side project that I might start on my own, where I sort of start, stop, and then it never really actually gets anywhere. Doing it in the structure of the course sort of forced me to push through, oh, I'm too tired to do it. No, just do it. So that's sort of where I'm starting from. Practicing product theory, improving professional confidence, and forcing myself to ship and to actually do something. Great. So at Prod MBA, we're sort of tasked with coming up with a problem statement or an idea or a niche in the market that we see, or that, then that for me, I picked something that was fairly personal, which is that people who have recently realized their mortality are frustrated by their inability to remember family stories. So this relates to me because I lost two sort of elders right before this program started, and I realized, sort of firsthand, there are so many stories that are just sort of gone. And so I wanted to investigate and see if there was something I could do about that. So that's sort of where I started from with the project. So our first objective was to identify a problem and identify the market to try to achieve sort of problem market fit. So for me, that's validating that loss of family stories is a real acute problem for families that face loss of elders or family members. Particularly in this pandemic, it's been pretty grueling, and loss is sort of spread out, I think, at a much higher rate than in normal times, or the before times. So some key results. I booked 7 user interviews. 5 were people who had this problem, and then 2 were sort of experts in storytelling. I interviewed experts in storytelling experts more to get tips and validation of how to actually talk to people about their stories. All of these interviews came through sort of personal outreach through Facebook, LinkedIn. I tried Facebook ads and Twitter polls, got very little traction there. And I discovered that, across all of these interviews, there was sort of a common link, or a theme kept coming up, that a lot of the stories that these people wanted to save were related to their parents or their grandparents who were sort of coming to had some sort of immigration experience. And in the case of one of my interviewees, they were the generation that immigrated from somewhere else, all themselves to America. That was a really interesting pattern I noticed across sort of genders, ethnicities. It was all like there's this view of like the immigration experience as like a trial that really had unique stories that people wanted to capture. But this is sort of the document that we created where I created that to sort of capture all of those interview notes. So there was all sorts of stickies in here about different themes that came out from the interviews. And then this sort of led to coming up with a sort of initial product vision. So I wrote something that's fairly wordy, help family historians create a legacy for the future. And then also sort of trying to capture like what their desire, what that niche is. So, I had a very broad term, families. So how do we narrow that down? It's really a big challenge sort of throughout this process. How do you really find those people with this acute problem? Because your search terms are very broad. Their family, their story, their legacy. There's no real like unique terms. Like we're not looking for forensic accountants or something very, very acute. So that was sort of a challenge that I kept sort of throwing energy towards. So I within this process, I did come up with 5 sort of key frustrations, which I was then able to sort of convert into opportunities. So by far the biggest one was sort of a lack of time, and I think a lack of time to capture stories. And I think the opportunity with that in particular was to make the capturing or the recording of stories really simple and low effort for the person who's motivated to capture these stories or preserve them. Another one was it was a hard time. They had a hard time getting people to tell their stories. So this is where my personal expertise with interviewing could be used to sort of help draw out those stories. Then there's sort of feelings of being overwhelmed by the volume of stories. Hard to sort of maintain after like an initial motivation to start storytelling, and then difficult to get others in their family interested. So I had an idea maybe this could be a game or some sort of habit forming app, but we'll get to that. The next thing was come up with offer market fit. So validate that the offer that I've come up with, we help families bond across generations by telling stories, is something that the market actually wants. We approached this by building a landing page, which you can see here. I had a really hard time with this part of the process. I got fairly low conversion rate on the landing page, had a hard time getting people to go there. And I think that comes back to sort of my struggle sort of defining and really narrowing the offer down to a really precise niche. And you can see here, I was sort of ideating a lot around the product strategy. Going through all sorts of different ways of defining the niche: big families, regular families, elders, busy families, overwhelmed families, disconnected families, and then all sorts of different outcomes and opportunity combinations. They're all sort of circling around the same thing. We have a group of people who are connected to each other, who feel less connected, and we want to help them feel more connected. And we think stories are a medium for doing that. One of the exercises we did was this blue ocean strategy, where we sort of went and looked around at the other competitors in our space and mapped out what they were doing, and then mapped out our sort of our potential features. So one thing I noticed was that there were 2 companies that were very similar, or were trying to solve, if you Googled for saving family stories or creating a family legacy, these were the companies that came up. And what I noticed about these companies is that they were ghost towns. They were full of features. But it was also really obvious that no one was using these sites. Like if you looked at like their copyright dates and like their features, there was lots of like coming soon banners, and the copyright dates were 1 or 2 years out of date. And it was really clear that sort of they sort of rushed, put this site up, and then sort of never built an audience for it. So I saw an opportunity that, these sort of sites were both really overwhelming with all these sort of different things you could do. So I saw my ideas, the blue line. There's really an opportunity in making it fast and easy to capture a story. So get those barriers out of the way and get someone sort of reinforce their motivation to capture stories. This led to our product story canvas, which really helped to identify the potential value that we could be delivering to the user, as well as really made me sort of diagram out what their motivations are, and really helped me to sort of form the story of why someone would come to me or why someone would come to my product in my head, which helped me to sort of act on the idea and helped me to sort of think through, okay, so if I'm this person, if I'm empathizing with this person, trying to sort of think through what they're thinking, where does that lead? What would be appealing to me? And that's sort of how that really helped to inform the vision, which was that we help families bond across generations, and really helped to start to refine my ideas around a solution. So next step was to test to determine the value and feasibility of our solution. So come up with a simple solution and validate that it's valuable for our target customer, as well as feasible to build and maintain. So we did a couple different exercises here. The first one I want to jump to is this 10 for 10 exercise, which we actually did in collaboration with one of my fellow cohort mates. And this was actually probably one of the most engaging exercises, because in this exercise, we sort of were paired off. We loosely explained our idea, our value, our offer, and then we had 10 minutes to sort of write down as many ideas as we could. And so I wrote down for my partner, and he wrote down for me, and we both wrote down together. And what was really fascinating was how, Jazz, who was my partner, had no experience in this space. His only experience in the space was sort of what I talked through. But he, just from talking to me, he and I were sort of had converging ideas. And so that led to us doing a sort of impact effort matrix, where the idea of a sort of concierge offer where I just sort of interview you or interview your family members came up as the sort of best mix of effort and impact. Some other ideas that we talked about were more game-based. Those seemed higher effort and also fairly high impact, but also a lot more effort. And then we came up with some low impact things like top tips for interviewing or top tips for storytelling, which were less compelling. So this sort of helped me focus in on this concierge offer where I will offer myself as the interviewee. You put me in front of the person who wants to tell some stories. I'll record them on Zoom. I'll edit them down and then deliver them to you. And so I wireframed this out. You can see the sort of Zoom part of that, so like the booking and the sort of collection of services we had to use here. So we had a basic landing page, which led to a Calendly to book, which then led to a Zoom link, which then led to an email, which then leads to the actual conversation. And then the output from that was the video that I shared back with the interviewee or the customer. And then on this, the real goal was to have a really efficient page where it was really easy to play back and share. And so, yeah, that's what I sort of diagrammed out here. The lean canvas was a really great tool for clarifying what the work was and for just, helping me as like a really amazing shorthand for here's this business on a plate. Here's sort of what we need to see. Here's what we'll look for to see if the business is thriving. Here's where we expect we'll make money. Here's our sort of high level costs. I actually use this at work in my new role, and it's been really clarifying for maintaining stakeholder alignment. Then there's also a product story map, which I will sort of leave to the side. It was really helpful to ideate on what the sort of emotions of the user were as we go through the process. So the last step was validating the core value. So as I said, I had trouble sort of signing people up. I did finally have a breakthrough on how to actually get strangers to sign up for this. I posted in a local Facebook group for my apartment building, and I time boxed it. I made it a holiday thing. And by making it like a really time specific thing, like tell me about holiday stories. I'd love to help you share holiday cheer by helping you record holiday stories for you to share. And I got 19 likes from a group of like 400 people, 3 messages, 2 tests booked, 1 actually completed, all from 1 Facebook post. And this was way better return than I got from like 5 different Facebook ad campaigns, And I think this is sort of the path forward. The interview process was great. It was, really helpful, like Zoom interview process. The interviewee was not particularly thrilled after she watched the video about sort of her state, but she got over that. She really enjoyed telling her stories, and it was really a relief for her to sort of get these stories out. So I think in the short term, the goal, if I wanted to build out this product, would be to continue to build trust in more Facebook groups, to bring in more sort of social audience, write some original content to start building organic search audience, and then more person-to-person outreach, offer more free interviews to try to build out more viral sharing, and then further refine the interview and edit process so that it's more comfortable for the interviewee, and they're happier with the final outcome. So I'd initially done a roadmap that was really detailed and had all these sorts of crazy features. And then I realized, wait, if I want to actually go anywhere with this, I have to do original content development. That's sort of the next best thing, the very next thing that needs to happen. And then that would lead to booking more interviews. And then maybe, this becomes something more complex, like short family documentaries. So my principles, just really quickly, are my product principles are really about raising team awareness, and because I feel feel strongly that improves decision making, and that building transparent communication is absolutely essential for a team, and that customer empathy, which I've learned through this project, is really like the #1 thing. So if you really empathize with the problems your customer is having, that will lead you to the best features and really helps guide the path. And then probably the absolute sort of core of my essence as a product manager is that product managers really own the losses and share the wins. So product manager, everything is your fault if it goes wrong, and everything is the team's success if everything goes right. And this process has really really highlighted that for me. So as I mentioned, I'm a product manager with over 7 years of experience who builds trust across teams with high transparency. I involuntarily specialized in digital transitions and establishing cultures of data-driven decision-making with a track record of delivering quality results. That's me. Thank you.
Awesome. Really clap. It's good. Really interesting to see the how you approach the solution, actually. Good to hear there were some results there. Great. Let's go through just some quick feedback on the case study itself, and then some more general points from the 8 weeks. I thought case study is really good, actually. I like the intro. I thought it was really interesting to hear about your goals. The problem was very clear, and it's nice to tell a story as you did. Like, you gave context on how did this come up. I think particularly when it's something like that clearly, is clearly like personal. It's also something that everyone can relate to. So I thought that it's great. It's naturally a topic that people really lean into. I thought you did good bridging throughout. So it was that you structured the narrative very clearly. For example, take that first slide on objective and key results. You went, so, So here was the first objective we looked at. And you said what it is in simple terms. We're just trying to see, is this a real problem? Excellent. And then you talked through the key results. Everything sort of flowed into the next point very logically. There's another point I will actually come on to later. On the interviews, good. It's always good to distill it down to a couple of examples, as you did.
I borrowed from Conrad on that one.
Oh, right, nice. Yeah, one technique you can also do is talk about, you can tell a story about one specific interview. Just to, here I spoke to John, and John said he had the, so it gives a bit of color to it as well. The landing page, good. I think that was my feeling throughout, is that the problem with the landing page and outreach was like not narrowing the niche. So, that you've got a niche that will probably spend money. It's an acute problem, but it lacks, is the market addressable? Can you find them? Yep. That's the hard part, because it's a very time specific thing, as you came on to say later. Blue Ocean, I thought was very good, clear narrative about, what's going on in the market, where you see opportunity. Lean Canvas, same thing, very good. You talked through sort of the key points from it very clearly. And Yeah, I think actually 2 final points I'll talk about into more general points, but I love the, the acquisition work you did and the roadmap as well. Before that, I'd be interested, like, how do you feel you've done on, coming back to those goals initially? How do you feel you are now in terms of, like, your process? You mentioned resilience.
Yeah. So the resilience thing is really, I can't tell you how many times I wanted to quit. How many times I wanted to say, oh, this is the worst idea ever. It just, oh, fuck it. Yeah, and just
have
like,
my
oh,
voice
man,
in your ear, just going like, don't do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, between you and my wife, who's like, who says, things like we don't quit. Yeah, so it was really hard. I mean, to just not quit, because it was so easy at some certain points to just quit. And I feel like I could have done more if there were a couple of times, like especially like Thanksgiving week, which was 2 weeks ago, where I just like I have to check out. I have to like be engaged with family stuff. I'm like drowning in family stuff. I just have to do that. And so I've been and that's part of the reason I booked so late, is I wanted to scramble to catch up. But in terms of like resilience, it's really been helpful and applicable sort of in work, that like there's lots of ambiguity I have to navigate every day, and it all sort of comes back to me to be the catalyst. And it's really pushed me to have the confidence to just sort of say, to sort of get in front of the crowd, the virtual crowd, and just say, hey, this is what I think we need to do. Who's going to help me with it? Here's why we need to do it. And I've gotten a lot better at that in the last 2 months. It's been like night and day for me.
And the reason I wanted to get that, sorry, on that is that was, the key point I have in my notes actually, in terms of long-term, the observations from the 8 weeks, like resilience, I've got capital letter resilience, exclamation mark, because I think it's because you had an innovative idea and there's nothing, like, there is nothing there. There are products, but they're graveyard products, as you said. So you had that challenge, and then you had no success on acquisition, like 0, 0, 0. Even just finding a tester like wasn't working. And I think it's great to see.
It was funny, I couldn't throw money at the problem to solve it.
Yeah, exactly. Which shows paid acquisition usually doesn't work until you crack organic acquisition. So again, it's like you went through all of these, just like, just obstacle, but you stuck with it and you saw results at the end, and you sort of found this really interesting insight around timing, immigrant background being a key factor, that there's, the elements are there. If you were to build this out, you can see that this would, I think this would succeed at some point if you keep cracking away at it as a product. So I think resilience was great. And I think the second thing, from what I've seen in terms of process, I think you've got everything that we've tried to convey. I've seen really good analytical thinking, genuinely innovative in the problem you're looking at, the ideas you had around it. Again, the unique insights, that's a really hard skill. Not many people have that ability to look at something just from a different angle and go like, well, actually, that's not how we should do it. Or why don't we think about it in a different way? So, I think you've got the obviously the playbook we've done in the 8 weeks, but I think also that I don't know if it's natural or cultivated or whatever it is, right? You have the ability to look at things in different ways, which is really powerful moving forward as well.
I've had this has given me the confidence to listen to that voice, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes complete sense. It makes complete sense.
And like, to not feel like I have to do things exactly the way I've seen them done.
Exactly.
And just getting a rep in of all these things. And some of them are tools that I will probably never touch again. Some of them are tools I will start using more frequently. But just being forced to sort of like, okay, here's the tool. How does this tool work? Okay, cool. Useful, not useful, whatever. We used it. Let's move on to the next one. And that process has been really helpful.
Yeah, nice. Awesome. And I think, as well, you can see it in, so say the roadmap. I think that sort of like difficult decision to say like, oh, we've just got to do content to build trust or get some acquisition. I think that comes most likely from that sort of resilience and clarity that you've built up over the 8 weeks.
Yeah.
It seems to be well thought out.
yeah, I'm strapped for time. What could I be doing now that would actually be getting me better results? It's write content. What do I not have time to do right now? Write content. So that's the next thing I'd have to do if I wanted to actually make this work.
Yeah, exactly. Which is great, because again, there's no avoiding the obstacles. There's just no avoiding. If you don't want to step up, that's fine, but don't expect to be promoted, right? Don't expect to move into leadership roles. It's a sort of general lesson. But again, awesome that you did step up to it. Well, Joe, honestly, it's been a pleasure having you on the cohort. And I think, as I said, I've found this problem just fascinating. It's something that resonates with me as well. And just very fascinating to follow the journey. What were any sort of learnings from that from the recording you did? And was it shared? Did you get it? Did you just send them a YouTube link?
So I've shared the YouTube link to the person. She lives in my building, and she said she'd share it with her son. One of her interesting feedbacks was her first reaction was, "Wow, who's this old lady?" She was sort of shocked to see herself on Zoom and to have to sort of look at herself for 15 minutes. So that was interesting. And she suggested maybe you should make this an audio thing, or give an option for an audio thing, as more of a podcast. And
that's so interesting. You could also do, how Apple, I don't use it, but Apple do that emoji thing over you.
Oh yeah.
So you could do, you as but then it's a hard. It's really interesting because you could do an overlay for the person doing a recording, but actually I would want to see my grandpa, but I don't want to see an emoji version of it. So there's some really interesting stuff. There's definitely something there that I think is really interesting to explore. But
I did it.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I did another one 2 nights ago. I haven't had time to do the edit yet, and it was with someone who's a professional actor. And she just sort of wanted to tell the narrative of her mom, of her life with her mother. And so her lighting was great. She just sort of monologued for 20 minutes, or 40 minutes actually. And her delivery was perfect. And she did her lighting correctly. So it'd be interesting to see what her feedback is. And how I approach that edit.
Yeah, nice. Keep working on it. Don't kill yourself on it, but an hour to every week, and it's just great learning to keep developing that in the background. And again, it's still building confidence with these frameworks. And strategic thinking.
Yeah, I mean, what I've sort of realized is that I did this to sort of push myself and see sort of what I could do, get off product Twitter, and it as we were discussing over LinkedIn, it is 80 hours. And there's no bullshitting. It is 80 hours. It is a lot of work. And sort of in my family and the way my family structured, that extra 40 hours a month, if I did it on this, I'm making $25 an hour. If my wife does that extra 40 hours a month, she's making $125 an hour. So it's it's a domestic balance we have to strike.
Yeah. No, but good. Honestly, I think you've, when I was reading those objectives at the beginning, I was I think you've ticked all of those, ticked the boxes with all of them, which is great to see. Good. Well, look, we'll stay in touch over Slack. We've got some community events. Might get something going in the US next year. We'll see how we go.
Okay. Well, yeah. Reach out if you are ever in New York. Let me know.
Yeah, I will do. And just keep me up to date if you're working on it. If you want any feedback at some point as well. Happy to help out. Awesome. Cheers, Joe. Well, have a good weekend, and we'll speak soon as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great one.
All right. Thanks as well.
Bye.